Chester is. And not only, it's also romantic, dramatic, exotic. If there was ever a place for all seasons, then Chester would surely take first prize. Every year, the magic of the place draws over 6 million people here from all over the world. A remarkable story for a small county town which originally started life over 2,000 years ago as a far-flung outpost of the Roman Empire. Despite some famous literary visitors, few people have managed to capture Chester's elusive beauty. That's probably why so many people return time after time to shop, explore, photograph, to play, or just simply watch as the world goes by. In this video, we'll be looking at how to get the most out of your visit, where to go for the best shopping, and some of the fascinating places you can explore in and around the city. And later on in the program, we'll be digging up some fresh archaeological evidence about life in the past, during the Roman occupation, and also in medieval times. So if you're planning to visit Chester and want to know more, or just want to sit back and enjoy the scenery, this program will take you on a voyage of discovery in Britain's most historic city. Chester is a masterpiece amongst cities and is immensely proud of its achievements and its links with the past. This ancient and loyal city was one of only 3 legionary fortresses in Roman Britain, a military base from which to conquer and control northern Britain and Wales, strategically positioned overlooking the River Dee. And even today, you don't have to look far to still feel a Roman presence. As an important frontier town, Chester also enjoys a special relationship with the monarchy, which spans 1,000 years. The heir to the English throne has usually held the title of Prince of Wales and Earl of Chester, and the relationship continues to this day, when Queen Elizabeth II recently granted the status of Lord Mayor to the city's 750th mayor. Famous figures like the 17th century English chronicler Samuel Pepys stayed in Chester, and the gifted composer Handel reputedly composed the Messiah in Chester Cathedral whilst awaiting his passage to Ireland. Modern-day travellers find Chester very easy to reach. It's ideally located in the heart of England, just on the Welsh border, about 3 hours by train from London, 30 minutes from Manchester Airport, and within easy travelling distance of the English lakes, the castles and mountains of North Wales, and the major cities of Liverpool and Manchester. Surprisingly small by big city standards, Chester still manages to retain a feeling of scale and grandeur, helped by striking contrasts in architectural style, such as between the Gothic splendour of the Victorian Town Hall and tiny buildings such as this quaint doll shop tucked away in Lower Bridge Street, which allows no more than 3 people in at a time. Amazingly, most of the city centre is contained within the city's ancient walls, which run for about 2 miles around the old city. Originally built by the Romans to protect their impregnable fortress garrison, the walls provided a formidable defence against fierce Welsh tribes just across the River Dee. The walls were later extended and refortified against Viking attacks by Alfred the Great's daughter in the 10th century. Over the last few years, millions of pounds have been invested in repairing and strengthening sections of the surviving Roman and medieval walls. Since Victorian times, the walls have been a popular tourist attraction, providing an elevated promenade around the city, and they're still one of the best ways to see the city's treasures in one easy circuit. With regular access on and off the walls, you can walk just a short section at a time, or if you prefer, descend to street level to explore the rest of the city. Thanks to some good Roman street planning, Chester is really easy to find your way about. The city centre is based on the original rectangular layout of a Roman military fortress. 4 main streets radiate from a central cross to 4 gates, still called North Gate, East Gate, Bridge Gate and Water Gate, which in Roman times controlled access to the fortress. In medieval times, these gates were superseded by fortified towers. The old North Gate, now demolished, housed the city jail. Nearby, condemned prisoners crossed the Bridge of Sighs on their way to the chapel of Little St. John, where the old Bluecoat School now stands. The school was built in 1717 as a charitable institution for poor boys, and only closed in 1949. In the late 18th century, no longer needed for defence, the medieval gates were replaced by these graceful Georgian arches, which somehow miraculously predicted the height of modern buses. The crossroads marked the centre of the Roman fortress, where the most important building lay, the Principia, or headquarters. This building is now partially buried under the present St. Peter's Church, and its columns and foundations can still be seen in several shop basements along Northgate Street and in the passageway near the Dublin Packet pub. For centuries, the city's mayor and aldermen met near the High Cross. The Cross is still the focal point of the city, a popular place to rendezvous with friends, or for buskers, pavement artists, and modern-day evangelists to set up shop. Most people seem to gravitate here, some to listen to the town crier reading proclamations and announcements.
Tourist Information Centre, and that's where you can pick up souvenirs, maps, also the best in information about our beautiful city, and also guided walks by the Guild of Chester Tour Guides.
If you don't have a strong sense of direction, don't worry. You're unlikely to get lost or disorientated for long. The city is well signposted. Most places are within short walking distance, and the Roman gridiron pattern of streets is very easy to remember. Of course, if you want to escape the hustle and bustle, it's easy to step off the main streets to explore the bewildering variety of shops, courtyard cafes and good restaurants, ruins and peaceful gardens, or museums which abound in Chester. Probably the best way to get a good grasp of Chester's history is to join one of the official Blue Badge guided walks around Chester, which run twice a day, every day, including Sunday. The professionally trained guides provide an informative insight into the city's history and architecture, and will help you to get your bearings before you begin to explore Chester for yourself. Tours leave regularly from the tourist office near the town hall and the Chester Visitor Centre, where you can also book hotels and day excursions, buy guidebooks, or find out about special events and the best places to eat. If you prefer a more leisurely way of seeing the city, you could try one of the open-top bus tours, which set off from near the town hall every half hour, and take you slightly further afield, just outside the walls, to see the river, the racecourse, and other places of interest. One sardonic critic described Chester as a huge Hollywood film set behind which there lies very little. And certainly at first sight, Chester's breathtaking black and white architecture does look simply too good to be true. But the city is an intriguing blend of ancient and modern, and at times it's very difficult to tell just exactly which is which. Chester, though, doesn't share its secrets easily. Looking from the cross, Eastgate Street seems to epitomize medieval England. This busy street stretches as far as the famous Eastgate clock, built to commemorate Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee, reputedly the most photographed clock in the world, after Big Ben, of course, and it does feel as though you've literally stepped back in time. The distinguished 19th century visitor, American novelist Henry James, was enchanted with what he found.
The American traveler arriving at this venerable town finds himself transported from the edge of the New World to the very heart of the Old. the wall enfolds the place in a continuous ring. Medieval England sits bravely under her gables and lattices, timbers and carvings. The large number of rich and intelligent restorations of the old facades attest a highly informed consciousness of the pictorial value of the city.
Chester's Victorian architects skillfully recreated the atmosphere of an earlier age with authentic interpretations of traditional Tudor-style facades. Often, these are meticulously detailed with carvings and figures, like these in Northgate Street and St. Werburgh's Street. Unintentionally, the city's architects created an elaborate illusion of antiquity. But Chester's beauty is much more than skin deep. Almost every building has a story to tell. Many shops still retain their original medieval crypts, which have survived intact from earlier buildings. And this bookshop in Bridge Street holds a surprise in store for browsing visitors, by revealing the outer wall of a much earlier building hidden entirely within the new. Not far away, in the cellar of this modern restaurant, visitors are welcome to inspect the excavated remains of a Roman hypocaust, a central heating system nearly 2,000 years old. Elsewhere in Chester, you can visit other Roman remains, such as the largest amphitheatre ever found in Britain, situated just outside the walls. The amphitheatre played an important part in the social life of Roman Chester, and seated around 7,000 people who came to watch gladiatorial displays and other bloodthirsty events. Even as late as the 18th century, the site was used as a bear-baiting pit. Opposite the amphitheatre is Chester Visitor Centre, which houses a tourist information service and a life-size reconstruction of Chester's Rose in Victorian times. Nearby, you can enjoy a moment's rest in tranquil gardens surrounded by Roman artifacts, including large stone columns from the communal bathhouse and a reconstruction of a hypocaust. And if all this history gets a bit too confusing, then the Grosvenor Museum will help you to piece together the story of Roman Chester. Here, the new Stones Gallery displays surprisingly well-preserved Roman altars and the tombstones of soldiers and wealthy families. Many were discovered by accident during repair work to the walls, and had even been used as hardcore to consolidate the decaying fortifications. The inscriptions help to reveal a fascinating insight into Roman Chester. Over 5,000 soldiers were stationed here for 2 centuries, the headquarters of the 20th Legion, victorious under its famous banner. This unnamed cavalry trooper was a Sarmatian from what is now southern Russia, and a young legionary, Caecilius Avitus, was buried here far from his home in Spain. Outside the fortress lived civilians, traders and innkeepers, servants and soldiers' families. In fact, most of the Roman fortress still lies beneath modern Chester, only rescued by archaeologists as developers excavate below street level. The Victorian mania for collecting things and preserving knowledge is amply reflected elsewhere in the museum, with its extensive silver and natural history displays, and watercolours by artists connected with the area, such as the celebrated painter Louise Rayner. Not far away, the former St. Michael's Church now houses the Chester Heritage Centre, the first of its type in Europe, which tells the story of the evolution of Chester's unique architecture. And if you're interested in exploring the city's latest excavations, the Roman Diva experience transports visitors back in time to Roman Chester. Here, you're welcome to chat with archaeologists about recent discoveries and inspect various artifacts for yourself.
There's a very fine Roman building under this site, and we'd like to expose more of that and discover what its function was. Of course, from all these layers and features and structures, as we excavate them away, we're discovering lots and lots of finds, broken bits of pottery and bone, food bone that was the rubbish that people threw away, but provides us with so much information about the sort of lives that people had when they were living here.
No visit to Chester would be really complete without visiting Chester's magnificent cathedral, which is enclosed within the city walls. A church was founded on this site in the early 10th century, when the bones of St. Werburg were brought to Chester to escape attack from the Danes. In 1092, St. Werburg's was refounded as a Benedictine monastery, and its small community of monks lived according to the rules of St. Benedict. On the north side of the present cathedral, the cloisters, where the monks studied, have been preserved intact and enclose the secluded abbey garden. Outside the cathedral is the elegant abbey square and the huge abbey gate, symbolizing the link between the city and the church. Near the cathedral grounds, the walls provide a picturesque walk and a great vantage point for viewing the rest of Chester. From this tower, during the Civil War, King Charles is said to have witnessed his army defeated at the Battle of nearby Rowton Moor and was narrowly missed by a sniper's bullet. After a 2-year siege by parliamentary forces, the walls of the city were bombarded and eventually breached, and Royalist Chester was forced to surrender. The tower now contains a small Civil War museum. Chester offers the visitor some of the best shopping outside of London, all within easy walking distance of the Cross. Chester's unique medieval rows or elevated shopping galleries provide a sheltered way to explore countless different shops, which range from big department stores like Brown's, the Harrods of the North, to high street names and small individual traders. Nobody really knows how the rows evolved, but they've always been a popular vantage point to view the city. The rows conceal a labyrinth of modern shopping precincts. St. Michael's Arcade is an elegant Edwardian shopping promenade which blends happily with the more recent Grosvenor precinct. Both offer rich hunting grounds for fashionable shopping and real bargains. Chester is a shopper's paradise. Prices are usually good, and pedestrianised areas allow you to stroll about or rest your feet for a moment. Part of the shopping experience is the sheer number and variety of shops, and never quite knowing what's round the next corner. There's no shortage of cafes and restaurants, pubs and hotels to rest and recharge your batteries with good food and wine. Entertainment is usually free. If you tire of shopping, there's always something going on. Street entertainers, buskers, and serious musicians entertain crowds throughout the year.
Keep it going. Over here! A little bit more. These people are having fun. Look, here they come now.
In the summer, the place has a great festival, even carnival atmosphere. Every 5 years, Chester's unique mystery plays add a splash of colour with daily processions and circus acts. The mystery plays were performed near the Cross by the medieval guilds and craftsmen of the city, and told the story of the making of the world, to entertain and educate the townsfolk. The mystery plays were the popular broadcasting of medieval times, and are one of the great treasures of the city. A few steps away, the quiet of Watergate Street is well suited for its collection of curio and antique shops. The Chester branch of the London firm of Sotheby's is fittingly based at Booth Mansion, which was a fashionable assembly room in the 18th century. There's several art galleries around too, with prices to suit most pockets. In the Middle Ages, Chester flourished as a trading centre and as a major port for North Wales, Ireland, Gascony, and even the West Indies. Even to this day, the Mayor of Chester is also known as the Admiral of the Dee. Wealthy merchants and shipowners built splendid houses in the city, like Bishop Lloyd's Palace in Watergate Street. Ornate carvings depict a variety of stories, heraldic beasts, and grotesque faces. Despite Chester's wealth, however, the Great Plague was no respecter of persons or position. Triggered by the Civil War, it laid waste to Chester. Reports said that even grass grew in the streets. In 1648, it decimated the population of the city, and more than 2,000 people died in just 10 months. The family living in this house was one of the few to be spared, and this inscription of thanksgiving now gives it the name of God's Providence House. Chester today offers a great variety of unique experiences and activities for visitors from far and near. Even a day at the races is a day with a difference. The track is said to be the oldest in the country and dates from about 1540. Look out for the remains of the original starting post. Thousands of people come here throughout the summer to have a flutter and watch the Chester Cup. The racecourse nestles between the city walls, once the site of the Roman port and quayside, and the Grosvenor Bridge, in its day the largest single-span bridge in the world, and opened to scenes of wild jubilation by the young Princess Victoria in 1832. Chester has two smaller bridges, the Old Dee Bridge, since Roman times controlling approaches to North Wales, and the Suspension Bridge of 1927, for the use of pedestrians only. From here, the visitor can view the whole riverbank, known as the Groves, where people listen to the band, feed the abundant bird life, hire a boat for an hour's jollity, or cruise up the river on the Lady Di. This deeper section of the River Dee lies above the weir, which for most of the year acts as the upper reach of the tide. The cascade down Salmon Leap is a mecca for canoeists of all levels of experience, and the venue for slalom events during the year. Away from this hive of activity, a restful retreat can be had in the Grosvenor Gardens, near the old ruins of St. John's, or beneath the medieval water tower, originally built out into the River Dee to protect the port. And if by any chance it should rain, the water tower now offers a refuge where scenes of the past are artfully recreated in sound. And there are other museums for the curious of all ages, from the Toy Museum in Bridge Street to the Military Museum near Chester Castle. Chester has always had transport links with the rest of Britain. The railway station is a listed building. And in the previous century, the canal was cut to connect the River Dee to the English Midlands and to the River Mersey at Ellesmere Port. East of the city, Chester's Zoo is world famous for its enlightened policy towards animal welfare, and for its role in conserving animal species, and recent successes in breeding endangered animals. The city is surrounded by a ring of charming villages, where traditional rural life sits side by side with more modern aspects of country life. And further afield lies the Cheshire Plain with its rich dairy industry and Cheshire cheese, overlooked by the imposing mass of Beeston Castle, the first in a long line of castles stretching westward along the length of the North Wales coast to Carnarvon and beyond. It's quite natural for us to take all this historical richness for granted. It's tempting to think Chester was always like this, a charming city displaying its heritage for all to see. In fact, the truth is more complex and far more interesting. Another catastrophe almost overtook Chester in recent times. In the 1950s and 60s, many of Chester's finest and oldest buildings had fallen into disuse and then quickly into disrepair. Some had already been demolished to make way for new developments. Fortunately for us, a more enlightened policy prevailed, just in time to save Chester's unique heritage. Some old buildings were adapted as offices. Others emerged as attractive and unusual retail premises. But it was a close-run thing, and the disaster that might have been adds maybe an extra sparkle to the magic of this very special city, which has been casting a spell over its visitors for the last 2,000 years. In this short program, we've just managed to scratch the surface but there's no substitute for exploring Chester for yourself. If you want more advice and information about Chester or places to stay, contact Chester Visitor Centre or Chester Tourist Information Centre.